And we are live on the Icecast Live for the very special New Year edition, which it's not quite New Year, but it's the first Thursday.
It's Christmas Eve in Ukraine today, so
Is it?
It's New Year somewhere in the world.
And it is the 12th night tonight. It is the
Mm.
final night of Christmas. So we are going to mark it with a very special episode of the Icecast Live.
Well, we got Santa.
And we got.
Is that
Are you
a special
referring
guest?
to our? Are you
Oh.
referring to our guest? Right. He hasn't got a big white beard. He's
Not yet.
walking off. He's walking off. He's not happy. He doesn't like to be referred to as Santa. So, yeah, our guest is, of course, Mr. Liam Sharp, legendary, super talented artist of many years, of many titles, of many companies.
And a pretty shit art writer as well.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. And thank you, Olly, for being on the show as well. I didn't say hello at the beginning. How rude of me.
How rude.
Hello, Olly.
How rude. Hello. Happy New Year, Shane.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Yeah, nice to see you. To see you nice. And how was your Christmas and New Year? How was your festivity?
Do you know what? It was everything I planned to do, from getting drunk to being sober. I planned with precision. So, yeah, I had a good festive outing and a good restful period. And what about yourself, Shane?
Similar, actually. I did do 3 nights in a row, but they were quite sensible nights. You know, we didn't stay out too late, so that I could do 3 nights. You know, the one night I think I was home by 10 o'clock. You know, it was practically, it was like a kids' night out. But it was nice. You know, 3 nights out with friends, and then about 3 nights out. 3 nights in. Sort of nice and quiet. I even had one night to myself, which was lovely.
That is nice.
That was the best.
Yeah.
Just sitting at home watching telly, sorting out my comics. I don't know about you, but I find sorting out my comics just so relaxing.
Yeah, I never used to bag and board my comics, but over the few years now that I got signed stuff, more for a memory than anything else, I bag and board them. And I find that gives me great psychic satisfaction, just bagging and boarding them whilst watching something on TV, like the 4th series of Atlanta, which I highly recommend. It's very good. It's on Disney Plus. It dropped a month or so ago. The last series was very surreal. I've seen one episode of this final series, series 4, and it's equally surreal, and I love that about it. Yeah, it's really good.
I will check that out. But as this is not a TV show, it's about comics, we will not talk about it anymore. But thank you, Olly. I will check that out. That sounds really good, actually, mate. So yeah, we're going to talk tonight about our top 3 comic titles or graphic novels of 2022, each of us, and Liam's going to contribute to that as well. And it's been a tough one for me. I don't know about you, but I've read some quite good stuff, and as we just discovered that we like a lot of the same stuff as well. So we just had to do a deal on what our top
deal. I think you got the fucking best end of the deal. I had to change my entire list.
Well, that's the prerogative. That's my prerogative. So, without any further ado, let's start the show, Sam. Play that VT. And let's welcome our guest. And welcome back to the Icecast Live, and welcome Santa.
Santa is here.
And it is the 12th night.
Look, it's Santa.
Well, you know, I thought I'd
Santa Sharp.
with a theme.
Very good of you, mate. Very sporting. Have you got some mince pies next year as well?
I wish I finished them all off.
Do they do mince pies in America?
I don't think they do. I don't think they do.
All the expats do, so we still get, you know.
Is there a shop nearby that sells like British stuff?
You have to make your own. But our daughter, when she was with us, they've all left, as I was saying earlier. we're empty nesting. But they she makes the best mince pies with like shortbread top. They're just fantastic. So
what about Christmas crackers? They don't have Christmas crackers over there, do they?
No, but again, all of those things we bring to the table. So and they do the Thanksgivings when they do the turkey as well.
Yeah,
they'll often do like a ham and things for Christmas instead, or goose. So
I watched a lot of TikToks about Thanksgiving and the food, especially like the sweet potato casserole with marshmallow. I'm like,
that's unusual.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really.
I mean, and they said, and the Americans have a go at British food. Some of the atrocities I saw for Thanksgiving food on TikTok was just. Ugh.
Now, here's an interesting thing about Christmas before we move on to comics and talk to Liam. And I know this from teaching A Christmas Carol. The reason he gets a turkey at the end of the film, at the end of the book, is because turkey was seen as very expensive meat in Victorian England. So in the south, they'd have goose or things like that. And in the north, they'd often have beef for their Christmas dinner. Turkeys came in much later on.
Thanks for that, mate.
That's all right. Now you know what the kids I teach know.
Well, and of course, how many ghosts are there in the Christmas Carol?
There's 4.
4.
Yeah. Everyone, because they forget about
Marley.
Jacob Marley.
Yeah. He's the first one, isn't
Marley.
he?
Or as I kept on calling him, Bob Marley when I was teaching.
to get people.
That'd be really cool on Christmas Carol if Bob Marley turned up at the start,
Well, you've got Bob Cratchit, so I was just getting confused. Yeah. Old age, I think.
That would make the Christmas Carol a lot more interesting.
Well, they make a lot of the GCSE results more interesting this year when they all talk about Bob Marley appearing on Christmas Eve.
Oh dear. Andy Hayes, Happy New Year, folks.
Happy New Year, Andy.
I went to university, song called Andy Hayes.
Did you? Could it be
not
the same
one?
Andy Hayes?
No, it's not. Trust me.
No. And from Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. I've done it on behalf of Liam, who did a wonderful run on The Brave and the Bold a few years back. I tried to stop myself saying bald then. So that's why I'm wearing it. And I've also got a lovely Superman T-shirt on that no one can see that I got for Christmas with a classic George Perez cover on from the 1980s.
Oh, that's nice.
See, I've dressed up for the occasion.
You have, mate. I've just got my grey jumper. Ollie is the one who dresses up. He always does. He has the themed hats and the themed mugs.
Yeah.
The rest of us are just normal.
It's usually Batman or Spider-Man or Superman or Star Wars, to be honest. I haven't got that many hats.
I just imagine you've got this wardrobe full of
I've got lots of T-shirts, so I've got a T-shirt for every occasion. But I didn't want to be too Batman-y with that and that. So Superman, world's finest, as we've got here in our midst tonight. Yeah. See what I did there? Segued into the interview. Come on, let's get on it.
So welcome, Liam. Welcome, Liam, to the madhouse.
Yes, Shane. Thanks for the invite.
You're very welcome, mate. We've been chatting a little while, haven't we, about you coming on? It's always you are a busy guy. You do a lot of stuff.
It's been a bit mental. To be fair.
This year alone, mate. How many books have you worked on this year alone?
Oh, I don't even want to think about it. I'm in recovery at the moment, It's just been busy. Honestly, I think since Wonder Woman, which is the last 6-7 years, it's just been one book back to back with another, and it's been amazing. It's been I think honestly, I just in terms of consistent work and getting books out and getting them on the shelves, the last 6-7 years has been the best I've ever had. So I'm happy in that. Long may it continue.
It's been a pleasure to watch it happen, to be honest, mate. Because you had this you had this period where we didn't see you for a while, on a regular basis,
and then you're everywhere.
And then
I was always there. It's just in the bargain basement bins.
But it was really nice to see Wonder Woman happen, Green Lantern happen. I mean, Wonder Woman work was astounding. It really was.
Thank
it really. I mean, I bought all of them, and I don't buy. I'm very picky with what I buy. It was good stuff, mate. It really was. And the Green Lantern run with Grant as well, superb. But you've also been doing some of your own stuff, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which you described yourself in one of the posts as like this was a life-changing thing for you, the discovery of what you could do when you were empowered by crowdfunding. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it affected what you do?
There was always a bit of a problem just trying to figure out with how you survive the time of doing something like Starhenge. Because that was a big personal project and something I've been wanting to do for a long time, which Olly knows. We talked about it back in the day, and it's all very well sort of going, yeah, great. I've got an image story. It's a 6-issue thing, but I was writing, drawing, doing for it. It's like, how do I survive, an 8-month period of putting this thing into production? With no income, because that's the thing. I mean, you can get an advance against these things from companies like Image. They are up for those kinds of things. But if you take it, you're always facing the risk that you could end up in debt or not, not covering those costs.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought, no, I want to be able to make sure I've got some money in the bank before I start it. And actually, it was a good friend of mine, Steve Morga, who publishes under the Big Wow banner. He also has he does the Lake Como convention. That's his show.
Right.
And he used to do the Big Wow show here in San Jose as well. Him and his mate Steve Wire. And those guys, Steve doing the Big Wow stuff. He does. He was doing Kickstarter for quite a long time. He was like, you really should do this. You should look at it. And basically I was busy, so I kept putting it on the back burner. Right. And then I think actually we did the right thing, because if I'd have done it before Wonder Woman, I don't know that many people would have seen it or have been that interested in it. But then with Wonder Woman and Brave and the Bold, and then the Green Lantern and all of that, suddenly, a lot more people were aware of and seeing my work again.
Yeah.
So I had a more baked in audience that I could talk to and reach. So we kind of bit the bullet and went for it, and it did everything as advertised. It did really, really well. Something, I think it was $120,000 it made. Obviously, that sounds like loads of money goes in my bank account, and it's really not that.
Doesn't work like that, does it?
No, because the number of the books you do, it goes up exponentially. So you end up with if you're doing 300 books, it's a certain cost. If you're doing more and more, and then sending them out and the cost of all of that. So it really doesn't make that much, but it absolutely made enough to get us through the period with tight belts on.
Yeah.
to make this the Starhenge book. So that was a revelation that made it possible. We just sort of launched into it from there. It got it was tight at the end. It was like, well, it's all the way through, but it did. Thankfully Starhenge came out and got tremendous reviews. I think it's a long tail project. I think really with a lot of these Image books, it's really down to the trade that you'll get the initial burst of interest, and then people are like, yeah, I can't wait to get the book. It's funny, and even that is now a thing of like, in the past it'd be like people would buy the first 3 issues. Now it's like, especially with independent stuff, they'll say, well, is there only going to be one? Because I'm not sure I want 1 book. I want 3 books before I fully invest in this series. So I'm sort of prepared for the long tail, because it's a big dream project, and I'm invested. So I'll be back. Is the
Well, that's good to know, mate. And and the project, you know, that's the thing, isn't it? You're not just doing it as a job. This is a passion project that is your creation. It's your property. You've created every aspect of it. So it's really important, isn't it, that you get that sort of long-term investment from the fans, because otherwise you don't want to like start something like this and then not be able to finish it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gamble. It's always a gamble. And it was a bonkers idea. And it is a bit of a bonkers book. You know, there was definitely a point sort of about 2 issues in where I was like, what am I doing? I've waited all this time to finally do an image book. And, you know, 30 years ago, literally 30 years ago, Jim invited me to join the image. Jim Lee invited me to join the image crowd in San Diego when I was doing Death's Head, which was obviously a much more mainstream character and sort of chimed with that whole vibe that they were doing I mean, it used to be the old Marvel in-house style, and it sort of became, now it's known as the image style. And I was doing that with Death's Head too, so I would have slotted into that quite nicely. But instead, I wait 30 years and I do this crazy book.
I mean, the benefit is that, you know, you can see, I mean, I've got copies of Death's Head, and you look at that work and you look at the work you're doing now, and you can see the huge development. You know, you're one of those artists that constantly strives to improve, to change the way you're doing things, and you never seem to just rest on your laurels. You know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I've got a short attention span or...
Maybe.
You're glutton for punishment, aren't you, Liam? It seems to me over the last 5 or 6 years, your work's become even more labour intense. I mean, looking at it, regardless of the change in development in your, you know, pen and ink style, the introduction of digital art, the oil painting, one of which we can see in the background, it just seems to be that you're probably spending more hours at the easel than ever before in your career. Would I be correct in thinking that?
I did a post about this the other day. It's funny. What I've realized is, like, every single time I find a quicker way to do something, instead of that meaning that I've got more time to myself, it means that I just do more.
I saw that post.
Which is sort of self-defeating, you know. But I don't know. I mean, there's an up and down to all of that, because I think some of it is if a project gains energy, then there's a kind of impetus that storytelling has, and you want to keep going. You want to get the next page done. You don't want to lose you don't want to stop yourself mid-stride. You want to just really keep going and charging forward and getting the story out. And I love it when I'm in that zone. You know, when you really sort of full steam with it. It's just a lovely space to be. But there's a downside. It's exhausting. You don't realize when you're doing it, but you hit the end and it's like you're just running face first into a brick wall that you can't see coming, you know. So you do have to take care of yourself.
I hear that a lot, you know, from a lot of artists who you know, because it's dead right what you say as well. When you're really in the zone, you don't realize how much you're pushing yourself because you're enjoying yourself so much. But you're still using that energy, aren't you? That creative energy. Your brain is working, and physically as well. I don't know about you, Liam, but sometimes if I work on art all day,
hold on, are you comparing yourself to Liam?
No, but you know, your hands.
Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci. You totally relate to him. Yeah, all that.
Anyway, 8 hours work is 8 hours work.
Can I just stop? Sky, just interrupt a second. Right. Do you mind if we do a little bit of admin here? We've got 5 viewers at the moment. And
hello, Dad.
Yeah,
how do you guys?
And we've only got 1 like for this stream. So can everyone just like this stream? And if
tell
you're not
all your
subscribed,
friends.
Yeah. If you're not subscribed to us, subscribe. Just like and subscribe. That's it. So
bring back Captain Stone. But thank you for that one, Forever Blue.
Who's Captain Stone? Oh, maybe there we go. Someone's. That's it. Thank you. See, the likes are flooding in now. We've got 3. Thanks, guys.
We've got another comment here from Jeremy Courtney. Dude, the new book is amazing. Can't wait to get the hardcover. Very cool. Hope.
Cheers, Jeremy. Appreciated.
Nice. Is this your art of Liam Sharp?
I think this is a hardcover of Stonehenge.
I think it's a hardcover of Stonehenge, yeah.
Right, okay.
Now you've had a Kickstarter just finished, haven't you?
Very
Liam?
successfully. Congratulations on that, by
yeah.
the way. It beat off the silver one, didn't it? Yeah, but you say terrible timing, but I believe it did better numbers than the silver one in the end, didn't it?
It did better, yeah. I mean, the silver one we had to run very quickly. That was a whole other story. I was trying to get a deposit together for a house, which sadly fell through. And it was like there was a time constraint on it, and unfortunately, I sort of had to run that one before we'd finished getting out all the books before the gold book. So that's these are the things you learn. It's obviously ideally what you want to do is get all of each campaign done before you start the next one. Because you're going to lose people who are still waiting. They're going, why would I back this? I'm still waiting for the book before. But it still did really well. I love the second one just because it's black and white stuff. Like we as Brits, that's kind of what we grew up with black and white comics. I feel like there's a bit of a loss to the black and white comic world. There's just not as many as there used to be, and I do miss a really great black and white comic.
Me too, mate.
So the second one was black and white, and the third one, the one that's just come out, was the bronze one. There was only going to be one originally. It started as like a softback 100-pager, and it ended up like this, hardback with a fancy ink and a ribbon and everything. It turned out really, really nicely.
Well, you just kept hitting the targets, didn't you, for your stretch goals? I remember seeing them. It's like, we've got this other stretch goal, and it's another so many grand, and they just hit the target, and it's like, got to do it.
Insane. Now. But then that was like, it was our daughter that said, why don't you do? Because there was a kind of unintentional gold theme with the first one, and she said, why don't you do gold, silver, bronze? Hence it being backwards, not bronze, silver, gold, right? Yeah. And that worked really well because then silver could be black and white, which made sense.
I really like this Man Thing illustration. Did you see the Halloween Marvel with Man Thing? What did you think of it? Because obviously you did Man Thing with J.M. DeMatteis.
I did, yeah. I loved the Man Thing in it. I thought they did a great job with it. It was nice that it was sort of mostly practical as well. I'm not one of these sort of practical CGI snobs. Great CGI is astonishing, but when you see something like that and you sort of know it's actually there, that's cool, And it was really nicely done. And this is one of those books that keeps coming back up again. People keep talking about it. It hasn't. It sort of disappeared for a long time, and I think people are sort of rediscovering it. And it was underrated, I think. It's funny, by today's standards, it was selling pretty well. It was selling 20,000 copies when they cancelled it. But it was never properly finished. And me and Mark DeMatteis were always going, maybe just if we could just get them to do like let us finish it with like a 3 or 4 issue special, that'd be amazing, because it's never been collected. And some of that stuff was like, I think it's still some of my favorite work.
What was it? It was on a special format, wasn't it? It was like
it was, but it was meant to be mature readership to start with, and then they kind of got cold feet halfway through, so we had to do some sort of last minute changes to it. But it still had, because that had been the intent that we were aiming for. There was a maturity to the way that Mark was writing it and the way that I was approaching the art, and there was.
Were you drawing it with cock and balls, Liam? Was that what the problem was? Like Batman?
Yeah.
Man,
little Steve. But you got his eyes. That's
has a whole new meaning, didn't it?
The giant-sized man thing. But it's the eyes, isn't it? The eyes are sort of simple and sad.
Yes, there's always the sadness. He's kind of the Snuffleupagus, really, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what? Now you say it, I can see that.
Yeah.
So who does that make? Giant-sized man thing.
And Howard the Duck.
There was once a band called Giant-Sized Band Thing, of which you were the lead singer, Liam. which eventually became
the band that
you're
in,
which I am now. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
So I am going to compare myself to Liam Shaw.
I think it's fair enough.
But you both draw,
I
you
remember
both sing.
the first gig.
Is that what you're saying? Right.
Yeah, there you go. But I remember that gig, mate, at our Bix show, that you did.
Oh my God.
And,
and
such a laugh that was.
But it was ridiculous because we had we had like about one rehearsal in a terrible space that they really didn't want us in. They sort of kicked us out halfway through the rehearsal. It was like, you can't do it in here anymore. It's like really, we're just doing this by the seat of our pants. And the sound was terrible, and but it was good fun and all of it was really good fun. And then we did end up rehearsing quite a lot. And before I moved to America, we did one Derby gig that actually was cracking. It was really good, we were finally rehearsed, and it was much tighter, I
remember you started doing some of your own songs as well, because I remember when you came to Shrewsbury, you did a gig at the local comic shop, and you played an original song, and I remember that was all right, man. It was all right.
I don't know. The sound for that was terrible too. It was like, really, Charlie?
The sound wasn't great.
In a little comic shop. And I was just
that's
like,
it.
I found that.
I remember.
Bless him. I loved Charlie, and I love Phil, and the whole gang are great. But I really was like, that was very uncomfortable for me. That particular gig.
Liam,
in that little
tell any of them where you're moving back to, and you'll never find them.
Yeah,
so
you'll
it
never
sounds to me
see
like
him again.
trying to recruit you for Cosmic Race 2.0.
Well, there are now 7 members in the band, so
amazing.
It's incredible, actually.
I have missed that. That was the end of my kind of music career when I
wanted to ask that. I wondered if you did any music while you've been over in the States at all.
It's funny. It's like when I think sometimes when you've got to really knuckle down and you get an opportunity presented to you, which I did, with Wonder Woman and all the DC stuff. It was just like, I can't drop the ball on this. I can't be distracted by anything else. And it really was at the expense of, I think music was the big thing I gave up. So I barely picked up a guitar, and I used to sort of routinely write songs. It was something I really loved doing. And I used to record a lot of music, Logic stuff and band camp or whatever, anything that I could sort of play with. So that was the big thing that I gave up, so that I wouldn't have the distractions, and it did pay off. But that's the price. That's the price. You can't. It's too easy to get distracted.
There's only so many hours in the day, isn't there, mate?
There is. It's like I've never been able to. I've never been a gamer, for instance, and that's another thing. It's like how does anyone find the time to game, especially if you've got family and stuff? It's like I don't know how they do it.
I used to play games. I played Grand Theft Auto. Then I had my first child, and then
that's it. Right?
Yeah, it stopped. I do have one question for you, Liam, before we get into our best of the 3 years. Is one of my favorite comics of yours recently was the Batman Reptilian.
Oh yeah.
No. Obviously, now it originally was supposed to be Steve Dillon doing the art on that, but unfortunately he couldn't do it. But you did it, and it's. I mean, your art is very, very different to what Steve, to Steve's art. I just wonder how you got involved in it, because I mean, also your art in it as well is kind of weird because it's kind of cartoony in places, while being very dark. It's quite interesting, and I just wondered what you think it would have been like.
It was down to obviously I've known Garth for a very, very long time. We go way back to right at the start of his career, really. So we've been friends since he first sort of burst on the scene, and we've never done anything together. But we'd often sort of meet up in New York for beers, and quite often it would be with Steve. And we'd find ourselves, in some Irish bar in New York till late in the morning. And Garth's a good friend of Marie Javin's too. Garth and Marie were around when we got married in New York. So Garth was at our wedding. Marie was at the hen night the night before, and then there was a Christmas party sort of that night. So everyone was at that too. So like we just go back a long way. And Marie, obviously, when we lost Steve, because it had been written for him as a almost like a DC comeback to the mainstream, and we lost him, and that was brutal for many of us, because he was especially to a certain group of like British creators of a certain age, he was like everyone's big brother, and basically Marie said, look, we want you to do this. I think it was, what was I doing? I was about to start the Green Lantern, and I was like, well, obviously I'm doing this book, and it's going to take a couple of years. And she said, that's fine. Garth wants you to do it, and I want you to do it. We want to keep it in the family, so we'll hang on for you to finish the Green Lantern, and then you can do it when you finish that. And I originally was going to do it in a more traditional approach in black and white, because when I started the Green Lantern, I was still doing a more traditional approach to comics, and as I went on, the last few issues became more and more wild and more painted, and a little bit more of a sort of Dave McKean vibe. And that was intentional as far as Grant and I were concerned, because it was a sort of nod to where Grant had started, and Grant was like, okay, we're going to end the Green Lantern run in a place that is almost sort of bookends his DC career a little bit. And I love doing that, because really that's what I've wanted to do all along, and it's very hard to get the opportunity to do that kind of a book. So when I finished the Green Lantern, I was like looking at the Batman Reptilian script and thinking, this could be almost like a dark, humorous companion piece to Arkham Asylum.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
And that really informed the way I approached it, and I just thought,
and
actually,
Joker in it is
right?
is absolutely insane.
more so than usual.
Yeah.
Garth makes no bones about just not really liking superheroes, and he particularly hates the Joker. So he wanted him to be like just a really annoying cretin,
Yeah.
So there was an element of that. And initially, I was always a big fan of the Dark Knight version of it, because Frank Miller almost made him cool with like a zoot suit and that 80s style suits, and he kind of worked with the gender bending thing with the lipstick and the suits. And so I was initially going to do him sort of like a cool version, and then I started, and it's just like, nah, he's got to be this like over the top bonkers cretinous character, But I had such a ball on that whole series. It went incredibly fast. I tried to do a page a day, so I would finish a page, send it straight to Garth. Garth would always feed back as like, there's the little bastard or something like that. I'd get a response. And actually, I saw him quite recently. We went back to New York for I got married in New York in '98 in December. So we went back for our 24th wedding anniversary, and so sort of hooked up with Garth again. And he just said, the only downside was it went too fast, because we were having a lot of fun with it. So I'm really pleased with how that book turned out, and the hardback edition is lovely. It's just got a really nice feel to it. It's about the same sort of size, and it really sits on the shelf nicely as a companion piece to.
I love it. Is it in continuity? Is Killer Croc really female now?
No, it's not. It's a black label, so it's like.
I hope everyone who's watching has read the book, by the way, because that was a little bit of a spoiler, Sam.
Spoilers, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not huge.
It's not even precisely female, is it?
It's not in continuity, so.
Yeah, well,
But I love it. I loved it. It was absolutely mental.
Yeah, it was.
That's a good word for it. Yeah.
Well,
I also particularly love the way that Batman is a dick. He really is. He's an unpleasant person. You don't like him at all.
In a world full of dicks, he's the biggest dick, isn't he?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Damned, by the way.
And the Green Lantern Goth had that scene with one of the alternate Green Lanterns saying to the alternate Batman, he said, "Oh, it's true. Batman really is a dick in every universe."
It's good to knock these iconic heroes from time to time, I think. Particularly someone like Batman, who is often presented as the best of the best. I still argue that Superman could take Batman out no problem. But I know it's popular opinion.
It's a better story, though. Better story. Oh, look, we've got a message here about PJ Maybe the Bug.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, as if by magic. Way.
Sam's getting good at this.
A long way.
I do love PJ Maybe. I mean, is another spoiler? PJ Maybe was killed off recently.
Well, I think most people.
What?
Yeah.
He died?
Yes. Well, I don't know.
I don't know if he really died. They'd never trust it.
Never say
maybe.
So he got shot in the air and exploded, and Dredd properly made sure he was dead. And I think John Wagner did say that he didn't kill him. So it's a shame because
cloning.
PJ Maybe was, I mean, this was about when I started reading 2000 AD in the 500s. It was great. I love PJ Maybe. He was a brilliant villain that actually, got one up on Dredd.
Yeah, I had the odd experience. It's like one of the few times in my life this has ever happened. When I was doing that stuff very early in my career, and I was only, I guess, 20, 21 years old. I went to UCAC, and
good old UCAC.
Frank Plowright, who ran the con, did this thing where he'd introduce everybody on the stage there, and so he'd get everyone up, and I went up, and he said, "I'm sorry, I've no idea who you are." I said, "Don't worry, Frank, I'm new. It's Liam Sharp. I've just been doing this PJ Maybe thing for 2000 AD," and he turned and said that to the audience, and I got this standing ovation. It was like bonkers. It's like, oh wow, okay, people like PJ Maybe. This is amazing. And the thing as well is that up until that point, I had been like, I really put a lot of work into that PJ Maybe. I don't know if you remember, there's a black and white one that I labored the hell out of, and I was spending like 3 days on a page. The pages are huge, and I was really thinking about the layouts. I was doing like Alan Moore type stuff with the panels, like when you move from one scene to the next. I was even measuring out like specific things so they would match. It's all this invisible stuff that nobody ever commented on or ever saw. But I put so much ridiculous work into it, and I was really, really excited to go and get that issue when it came out. And I went to Manchester, for I was living in Whaley Bridge at the time in Derbyshire. Went to Manchester to the news agents to see if they had a copy when it on, as you did on a Thursday every week back in the day.
The good old days.
And I got there, and it was the first issue of Simon Bisley's Slaying the Horned Blood. And I was just like, oh my God, nobody's going to care about my stuff in this book. Because it just blew me away. And I remember like poring over this issue and just thinking, this is the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. And then coming to mine and just crying. I went up, just thinking, this is terrible. But little did I know, actually, people loved it, and PJ Maybe became like the third most popular Dredd villain of all time. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was like the Dark Judges, I think Judge Caligula, and then PJ Maybe for a while. So yeah, that standing ovation moment was like,
he was great.
I mean, that's the great thing about conventions, isn't it? That they give artists and writers the chance to really get a feel of what fans think. Now that could be good or bad, depending on what the work. But when you get a moment like that, it really does sort of validate, all that work that you've put in. With otherwise, if you don't get to see the fans or interact with them, you don't really know what they think.
No, I mean it was all obviously pre-internet days as well. Yeah. So the cons really were that moment where you interacted, and it's like we were all very happy to back in the days.
And there was only one. There was the UCAC.
That was it. Yeah. And it was a great show.
Yeah, happy days.
Definitely. So I think there's no more comments at the moment, other than some spam that we're not going to show. So we will go into our top threes, I think, guys. I will be gentlemanly and let you guys go before me.
Gentlemanly, you've stolen all of the good titles, you tosser.
So let's allow our guests to go first.
I didn't take mine though, Ollie. So
I've seen on the back. I'm saying there was something there.
Including mine.
I'm putting yours forward. You can't put yours forward as well.
Yeah.
Hey, first come, first serve.
I'd love to see one day an artist say, "Yeah, my book, Stonehenge is the best comic."
Yeah,
and the best book
my first
favourite. Silver.
My second favourite.
So let's go. If we'd like to run down your top three in reverse order, Liam.
I should have done a
shut up, Sam.
Countdown. Sorry.
Honestly, I couldn't even pick an order. I really I couldn't pick one over another. And also before I do that, I would have included this one too, which is amazing. I absolutely loved this.
TKO are doing amazing stuff with comics, aren't they?
I missed it when it came out, and Garth gave me this after we saw him in December, and I read it on the plane back and was just mind blown. The art is incredible. Garth,
Steve Epting, isn't it?
Yeah, Steve Epting's just brilliant. Elizabeth Brett-Weiss, who did the colours, is insanely good as well. Everything about it is amazing. Can't recommend this highly enough. Not part of my top three. It's part of my top four. But yeah,
honourable mention.
Absolutely honourable mention. So let me go. I'm going to grab Echolands.
Yeah.
Oh my word! What a beautiful piece of work that was. Well, I'm just a huge fan anyway of J.H. Williams III. He's just incredible. Dave Stewart's colouring is always fantastic. I don't know if you saw that the Gaiman one he did with the Sandman, which is just beautiful. As well.
Sandman,
one of my favourites.
Overture
is just beautiful. But yeah, Hayden Blackman too. He did a book for Madefire actually, The Irons, with it sadly never got finished, but he's a great writer. And this thing is just, it's fascinating because you got in the back he did like this list of all the songs that he was listening to through producing it all, which is it's very extensive, but it's quite nice because it's like if you wanted to have a soundtrack, it's all in there.
Yeah, it's a nice touch, isn't it?
It's really nice, but these layouts across the double page are just incredible. So yeah, absolutely adore that book. I can't say enough about the art.
Incredible.
Yeah, he does a similar thing to me too, where he uses different styles for very specific reasons, and it's a real love letter to the medium, which is something I was trying to do a bit with Stonehenge too. It's not just about the story; it's sort of as much about the medium.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that
one. And then I think I saw Historia come up, so I'll bring that one.
That's great.
Phil Jimenez. It's just Kelly Sue DeConnick, who's just a lovely person too. I thought she gave it such sort of poetry in the way she wrote it. And it just felt like a real. She obviously researched the hell out of it, and it had this weight and this gravitas, and it also went back to some of the sort of earlier versions, I guess, of the gods that were a little bit more abstract. They weren't as sort of solidly human, I guess, as some of the others. They were a little bit more. They were interesting. They were like made of bone. One of the characters was, but Phil's layouts just were mind-blowingly good.
he takes it to another level because he's always been a great artist. But on this book, you just feel he's taking it up to 11.
Absolutely. Michael Conrad, who's working with me on EXO at the moment, he said you should have a maximalist off or something. He said you're like both maximalist artists. I always like saying, who does more? I'm like, I'm not competing with you, Phil. That's all. It's insane.
It's stunning, isn't it?
You can tell he had a lot of love for it. You know, you can feel the love coming off the pages for the subject matter. He obviously had
Black Label are doing some really good stuff at the moment. Really good stuff.
They are. It's an amazing book, and for all the incredible complexity of the art, it's got a light touch in the writing. It reads really clearly, and it's just amazing. So, I mean, Phil, I really love anyway, so I have a particular affinity for that first one. But Kelly Sue's writing across the series is really, really good. So there's that, and then my last one, by no means least, this thing is just amazing decorum.
Yes, beautiful. I mean, look at that cover. That is just beautiful, isn't it? Oh, I love that.
There's a little bit of a theme, I think, for me in the picks that I've got, in that all of them have got art that really is pushing the boundary a little bit. I picked up decorum. How much for? I think I'd almost finished the last issue when I found the trade. I picked this up when I was in England over the summer, because I'd missed the series, but I'd seen some of the art from it and was like, no, I need to get a copy of that. So I picked it up in FP when I was doing a signing, and I just read it cover to cover, and it's interesting too because he does a similar thing with the art. Different art styles, and some of it's illustrative and some of it's referencing sort of other artists from illustration. There's a John Berkey type spaceship at one point, and there's lots of gorgeous abstract stuff and things that almost feel like Ashwood, kind of very loose and energetic and kinetic. But he's just so good across so many different styles. Artistically, and it's just a really fun read too. It's like, to start with, you think, oh, this is going to be dense, it's going to be a little bit hard because there's so much sort of associated material with it, with maps and all sorts of things like that, like these kinds of things, which are amazing. The kind of work that's gone into the world building, and it's just beautifully designed. But the whole team on this are amazing. They weren't people I was familiar with, which is always nice. You know, I recognized the name Jonathan Hickman, but I hadn't read anything of his. And I'm not terribly good. It gets increasingly hard, I think, when your head's down to really sort of keep up with what's going on. I do try.
It's not easy. It's not easy, is it? I mean, Hickman's done a lot as well. I mean, he's done. He's done all that X-Men stuff recently.
That's the thing. I've not been reading much Marvel. DC's been where my head's been at, just because for obvious reasons, and so I've missed a fair amount of the Marvel stuff. But Mike Huddleston's art is just beautiful. I am a huge fan of this. Can't wait for more.
I mean, if you like the Hickman stuff, these X-Men run was amazing.
It was revolutionary, wasn't it?
Yeah, it rejuvenated the X-Men. To be honest, after a long.
Like I say, I knew the name. I hadn't read the stuff, and that book really kind of blew my mind. And definitely, I'll check that out.
There was a House of X, Power of 10. That started coming out during the lockdown, and it was just blew my mind. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was just a simple concept that he came up with, and then he built a story around this really cool concept and ran with it, and it was great stuff. I won't say what it is because I don't want to spoil it.
It's just a shame he had to leave, but I do know that he left with telling all the new writers like Kieran Gillen and Al Ewing, this is the plan I had. over to you guys. So I suppose we'll never know how much of that original plan he's stuck by, because I love the whole concept of the mutants taking over their own islands, setting themselves up, but then saying, well, with all our powers and our intelligence, we can cure any disease. But for you to get that, we want trade in return. The way I felt it was going, because there's no such thing as a utopia in comics, is that there was going to be one hell of a dreadful kickback.
All
those bad guys. If you're a mutant, pardon?
Why did he have to leave?
He took the Substack money that a lot of creators did a year ago, and so he's world building over in Substack. And the downside of Substack is all of these great creators have set up their own little universes, but at $7.99 a month, suddenly where my comic book dollars are going, I've now got to decide: am I paying $7.99 a month for a set of comics that aren't as regular as these creators said they were going to be, or am I going to stick with floppy copies and digital? So it's become a bit of a bugbear for me, because I no longer can read Jonathan Hickman's stuff because he's charging $7.99 a month
behind a paywall.
When I looked into that too, I realised that for people like me, it just doesn't work, because I can't make 4 books a month. I can only make 1 at the most.
But you know what, Liam? I don't think a lot of these creators are. I know they were told they were going to do all of this to the fans, and whilst I get the free Hickman newsletter, because often he gives freebies out, I think he's the only creator who's actually stuck to his guns. But I think, and I don't want to quote too much, it's only been a handful of comics that are sent out as PDFs, and for $7.99 a month, it's not where I'm not
interested. I'm not interested in OnlyFans for comics.
It is a shame.
And it's not good value. I don't think the value isn't there. I don't think it's the creator's fault. I just don't like you say, Liam, there's only so much you can create in a certain amount of time.
It was just geared towards writers. There's no way artists could make it work. At all. No. I can't charge $8 a month just to look at my 20 pages that I've drawn. It was like, so
Hickman's been clever because he's joined up with other artists and other writers.
No, but that's the whole thing, Unfortunately for an artist, you can't get 4 other artists to work with you. So, and then you're cutting the value right into 4 bits.
That's it. And no one's making, and you're not making.
Stick with Kickstarter. Stick with, and I know we're not. Has Kickstarter, because I felt like we clipped the interview too early for my liking. Has Kickstarter given you that opportunity now? I know you've mentioned that you're going to get a second series out of a Starhenge at least. Are you able to sit back and, with that Kickstarter money, be comfortable enough to say, I can at least get this second season done before I have to maybe go back, put it on hiatus? Don't forget, you can always do a platinum book.
Titanium's good. Yeah.
I think 3 Liam Sharp art books is more than enough.
But has it given you that freedom then, Liam, that you were always hoping for? Are you able to sustain that freedom?
I think with the trade coming out, that's going to help. I'm already got a chunk of I'm doing like a standalone 60-page book called All, which is a follow-up set in the same universe. It's sort of all the stuff that happened in the future.
And that's previewed at the end of Starhenge, isn't it, number 6? Yeah.
So that one's largely done. I've got about 10 pages left of that to do. And that one really is like a old school graphic novella. It's like it's got text. So it's almost a bit like Stars My Destination and stuff, where there's actual it's written work with illustration and comic format stuff in there too. So
I'm just Caged Aura.
It's called Ore, O-R-E.
Oh, did you send me a picture?
Caged Aurora is an actual novel. Just words. Nope.
Don't get confused, Sam. Don't get confused.
We don't do just words on this show.
That's Ore. Yeah. So that's coming out later in the year. I think September time, if I remember.
Oh, right. You saw it here first, folks.
Yeah. I didn't want it to, I was gonna put it out in March, but then I thought that's too near to the trade. I want to give the trade some time So this will come out off the back of the trade a little bit later in the year. Cool. And yeah, it's basically as you saw. Well, I won't give anything away, but it's and this is from the EXO book that I'm doing. But yeah, Ollie, what you were saying in terms of Kickstarter, it did absolutely. Without it, I couldn't have done the first run. So absolutely, I think moving back to England is a lot cheaper than living in California. So my expenses are not going to be as high. So the pressure just to sort of get by should make.
You have heard about the cost of living crisis, haven't you?
Yeah. I know, but it's seriously, seriously, it's like Derby California's like London prices.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's a lovely page. That's a lovely page.
So there's a bunch coming up, but the only downside I think with Kickstarter is you can do really well. You have that ability to obviously directly work with the people who have supported it. I just think that. So, for instance, the last one we got was based on 650 orders, which is a tiny number.
Yeah,
and I don't think you could sustain that as a comic audience, and I don't know how you build it either.
It's a totally different market, isn't it? Because I mean, you can make a lot more money from 600 people on Kickstarter than you can from a comic shop.
But it's like,
but it's a finite number, isn't it?
It's extremely finite. It has a small ability to get any significant reach. I know there are people like Zoop who are doing a lot of work to address these things. So I think there's strong potential in the future to make these kinds of things work. I don't know what that answer is. I mean, all of us are fighting the whole time just to rise above the constant noise on the internet and to get seen. Even established people struggle to sort of break that glass ceiling and to find new, especially with like different algorithms in place to squash things. And it's that weird place that a lot of us are in, it that we're not a corporation. We don't have a ton of free money to try and throw it around to reach people, especially when you already have a kind of very specialized marketplace. I tried paying, for instance, for both Twitter ads and for Facebook ads, and actually all I got was even though it was targeted supposedly, I ended up sort of getting abuse from people who were like, what the fuck is this thing?
Oh really?
Who's this? I'm not interested in that. Yeah, I mean, one guy was like,
it means you're getting out. You're spreading out.
You're going outside your
and like it's just yeah. Sorry, mate. What was that?
It means you're spreading. It does mean you're spreading out, and you're not just talking to people who already know.
It's going outside your target audience.
You don't want to know.
Yeah. It's funny. People can be funny on the internet, can't they?
Yeah, they can. But I mean, basically, I paid, not an insignificant amount of money for about 3 likes and no extra sales. So it was just like, well, that doesn't work. I think it works if you're like a corporation and you're going to pay, you're going to put 10,000 into it, and you've got a product that maybe is going to appeal to people in many different walks of life. But we're talking about the niche marketplace of comic books
and keeping up with the algorithm as well. I mean, I've dabbled in Facebook advertising and I've had some great success with it, but I've also had some incredible misses with it as well. And you think, I've sussed it now. I know what the demographic is. I know who to aim this at, and then everything changes. Yeah. It's not easy.
No, and and even then, it's like, is this platform dying or not? And it's like, it's funny.
It's too big to die, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, like, things die in ways that you don't even expect. They die because the people using it either get older and older. And I found, like, recently, I had stopped using one of the platforms for a couple of weeks without even thinking about it. And that's kind of how MySpace died for me. Just one day I stopped using it, and then eventually, you kind of, a year goes by and you go, oh, why did I stop using that one? And you go back and you can't remember your password and you can't get back in. You got a new email because you set up another company.
I found that out. You know, when everyone was going on to Mastodon, I thought, oh, I'll get a Mastodon account, forgetting I'd done one in 2017. Why someone got my name? Oh, it's me.
It's actually me.
You forget. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? A couple of little comments before we end the show with the rest of the.
Oh yeah, that worked really well in Stonehenge. Really well. And again, you were saying you used specific art styles and specific artists for very specific scenes. And with Matilda's backstory, Amber's backstory, you seem to very happily pass on to Matilda. How did that collab come about then?
Well, I mean, number one, she's my daughter. Number two, she's really talented.
She is incredibly talented.
How
old was she when she did that? You know, she's really young, wasn't she? Incredible.
I think she was 24 when she was doing that, but the stuff she was doing, I mean, she was doing stuff like that when she was like 16. She's really clever, and but I mean, it was a joy to work with her for that reason, right? And
because it's such a personal project, surely that's going to be something that's buried with you when you die.
But the other thing, it's like the sequence she drew is such a sort of traumatic sequence. And I was like, I knew I wanted it to have a sort of charm about it and be a way, like, how would this character internalize this? How would she, if she was going to draw it herself as art? And that's the whole point there was like, you know, those Matilda pages are Amber drawing the pages herself. So it's her brain, her young brain, dealing with the loss of her parents and how she internalizes that. And it made the most traumatic thing in that first couple of issues something more palatable. You know, and I think it made it more poignant. Yeah. I think if I'd have given it all moody, dark art like I do, it wouldn't have, it wouldn't have been as touching.
I think it was a masterstroke, to be honest. I really do. I think it worked really well. It was a really inspired choice. We've got one more question. Will Encore come out on Comixology for additional funds? I think that question means, you know, will you look to sort of earn more from it via Comixology?
I've actually put both. You can get. I made it available, the first two books, for free anyway.
Yeah,
as a PDF. And I've put links up on Facebook and on Twitter, and if you go and find them, you can just download the first two books completely free. You don't have to go on Comixology. Just go and find the links and go and get yourself copies. You know,
and at some point,
we'll probably do the same with the third one too.
And the third one's got a career retrospective in it. I'm really looking forward to reading that, I must admit, because it sounds to me like it's a real deep dive.
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm sort of on the final few days of editing the text for it all. I'm trying to walk the line between it being, you know, very sort of honest and human, warts and all kind of thing. But I just need to maybe cheer it up a little bit. It's slightly
a few funny little stories in there, you know.
Just put some pretty pictures in there.
I mean, sometimes that's the weird thing, you know, when it is a difficult business, but I mean, honestly, I've got no complaints. The last few years have been amazing, and I'm just wary of sounding a little bit, you know, sorry for myself or something.
I think people aren't used to people being so honest. I think you come across as a very honest person who is very approachable online. Do you know what I mean?
I try to be, but I know some people interpret that as like I'm moaning or like I'm feeling sorry for myself. And
but you really also seem to be the sort of person who looks at that one person who says that and the other 99 people who don't say that.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah, and you shouldn't, because I've read a lot of the fact that people are willing to read these long posts mean they do care, they do want to know. And even if they misinterpret it, they've read that post. Whereas other people go, well, there's more to read. I'm not going to bother reading this.
I stopped doing them for a while and I started getting requests for them.
Really?
I'm missing you. It's like, really?
Make it longer.
I think what it is, what I think it is. I mean, I know myself when I read them, it's quite inspiring because what you see is your struggles that you go through, and you're very honest about them. And I think other people just say, "Oh, right, so this artist who I really admire is going through the same stuff that I'm going through. So maybe I can also achieve what he achieves."
Well,
so it's a real positive thing in that respect.
That's the hope, it's that it's relatable,
Yeah, that's the easy way of saying it. You said it much more succinctly.
No,
that's why he's the right.
You try. So I'm just treading that fine line where I don't want to definitely seem like I'm, struggling or unhappy or anything like that. I'm really not. But it's that thing where when you're honest, generally I'm a really cheerful bloke. That's
you are.
That's my day-to-day.
You can attest to that.
But behind it all, it's not like I'm like. God, life sucks.
Where is me?
but also it's hard. It's hard, and what we do is crazy. This whole medium is insane, and the more you the longer you go on with it, the more you realize we're like extreme. It's the extreme sport of comic art. It's the absolute north face of art. Because there's nothing else as hard.
Yeah,
it's really, people have no idea about how ridiculous and relentless it is.
It does seem to be the artistic equivalent of self-flagellation, really.
It's multidisciplinary because
the most work for the least reward.
Yes, for the least money. Yeah, you've got to love it.
You'll get your reward in heaven, Liam.
I saw this. There was I won't say his name. I love his stuff anyway. But he does cartoony. Illustrations for a very famous novelist, and he was on the radio for I guess 15 years ago, something like that, and he was talking about illustrating books, and he said there was a point, like one of the interviewers said, people don't realize how grueling, and he said absolutely not. He said people have no idea, but for every single month I'll sometimes have to do 16 illustrations. Like, you're talking about
he wouldn't last 5 minutes in comics, would he?
Yeah.
It's like that's 2 pages.
Yeah.
He has no idea. God, doesn't know he's born.
And it's like that was a little wake up. It was a wake up call for me. It's like, what are we? We're nuts. We're crazy. What we do is bonkers, and that's the reality. It's not actually the skill to do it or the talent to do it. It's being able to do it every single day. That is the real secret of being a comic book creator.
Yeah.
Right, we smashed through the hour.
We have. So,
Shane, what's your 3?
Yeah, we're going to do it really, really quickly. So in this descending order, number 3, Swamp Thing by Ram V and Mike Perkins, season 2, absolutely brilliant. Mike has done amazing work.
Mike Spicer's colour work on that is quite phenomenal as well.
It's amazing, that book.
Yeah,
I got a cover from him too. It's a great read, but I love his art. It's just amazing.
It's incredible, and he's perfect for the title, isn't he? The way that he's approached it, it's just so good for it.
But I just love the way. I mean, considering it's a comic full of greenery, that's what I like about Mike Spicer, adding those layers, depending on and also contrasting that with the big sort of villains that come in and the Suicide Squad. Yeah, the whole run. And again, I love these season 1, season 2 things because the whole run. Again, I think it'll come down as a bit of a classic. Apparently, I was told at Thought Bubble this was meant to be a 5G storyline, but it got canned obviously when Dan Didio left, but was resurrected again. So that's why there was never meant to be an Alec Holland Swamp Thing. This is meant to be the replacement. The positive is we've now got 2 different Swamp Things running around the universe.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
It's cool.
Yeah, Mike's amazing. That would have been another honorary mention, to be fair.
Well, I'm glad I got it in there then. So another Ram V book, he's doing good stuff. Was Detective with Mr. Albuquerque. Is that how you pronounce it? Albuquerque. Yeah, and also there's a lovely backup strip in there by Cy Spurrier and Danny, or Darnie. I'm not sure how you say that one either. I'm terrible, aren't I? Beautiful stuff. That little backup strip in Detective.
Well, Darnie did some stuff in Misty. Was it Misty? Or,
yeah, it was.
Oh, that was really good. Or was it really yeah?
But I don't know if you guys have been reading Detective, but it's
Evan Cagill, the cover artist. He's a magnificent find as well. Evan Cagill.
Yeah, it's
not
really
reading
good.
Detective. I'm reading the Batman, the Chip Zdarsky Batman.
That's good as well. Both of them are good. But I think what Ram's doing on Detective Comics with his very prosaic style anyway, mixing that up with the idea of this long form opera. It would have been one of my picks as well, Shane. But you wouldn't let me have it.
Well, and also the colouring again, Dave Stewart, one of the best in the business, it's just, and it's so good with the art. It's just, he just manages to adapt his colouring to any artist. He just does great. It's fantastic. But my number one it's not a big book actually, but I loved it. And that was the Frankenstein book. It's Frankenstein New World. And it's set in the far-flung future of the BPRD. So after they've all gone, long time in the future. It's by quite a few people.
Frankenstein. Oh no.
We've got Mike Mignola, Christopher Golden, Thomas Snogowski, I think is how you pronounce it. Peter Berting and Michelle Madsen. It's a real good team, and the covers are by Mike. Apart from, I did get the variant cover by our good friend Mr. Dave Hitchcock for issue 2. I had to get that out of loyalty to Dave.
So it's called Frankenstein.
Derby boy.
Yeah, that's it, fellow Derby boy. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So it's called Frankenstein, so it's about the professor, not Frankenstein's monster.
No, it's Frankenstein New World, right? So what it is, it's a version of Frankenstein monster who has survived the end of the world. I don't know if there's any BPRD readers here, but BPRD, basically everything went to shit in the world and monsters took over. And so this is like long time after that, when the human race, there's not many of them left, and they're underground in a place that is, I can't remember the name of it now, it's gone out of my head, but which is basically, it is a subterranean world, and they're totally ignorant about the surface world. But this Frankenstein chap, they see him as a deity, and he hasn't moved for 1,000 years. He's just sat still for 1,000 years, and then one day this young psychic girl sort of awakens him to a new danger on the surface world, and him and this young girl go on this little odyssey. And it's a 3-issue limited series. It's really charming. It's just a beautiful little story. It's nothing spectacular, but it is a great little piece of storytelling, and I highly recommend it. It's my number 1 for 2022.
That's great.
There you go. Sam.
Right. Well, seeing as though none of you have picked any Marvel stuff.
Hold on, I have.
Have you? Oh, what do you have?
Avengers Forever.
Oh yeah.
Well, you want to go next, then, Olly?
Away now.
You want to go next, Olly?
You let Sam have his say. I can be concise.
Okay. All right. Well, actually, I didn't all pick all Marvel. So I've got, first off, I've got Immortal X-Men. Kieran Gillen's continuation of the X-Men. I loved the Hickman run, and this is great. I mean, his Mr. Sinister is just the best. I think there's going to be a whole big crossover with Mr. Sinister. He's just brilliant. I mean, I didn't care about Mr. Sinister before. I mean, I read comics at X-Men during the 90s. I mean, who cared about Mr. Sinister? But as soon as he turned up in the X-Men run, brilliant.
He's totally changed the character, hasn't he? He's totally reimagined him in a way. He's a totally different character now.
I mean, he was in Mr. Sinister was in the Marauders. Was it Marauders? Was it, which issue was that?
Way back.
Yeah, the recent X-Men series. The Hellions. He was in. So he was in the Hellions, written by Zeb Wells, which was one of the best X-Men comics. And talking of Zeb Wells, trying to keep things
like what you did there.
I've been reading the new Amazing Spider-Man, written by Zeb Wells. Now, I haven't really read Amazing Spider-Man since One More Day. I dropped it.
That's when I dropped it then as well.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I love Dan Slott, but I never could get onto his Spider-Man. And then you had Nick Spencer, and I've been missing some Amazing Spider-Man in my life. So I started reading Amazing Spider-Man, and it's quite good. You know, it's John Romita Jr. art. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. But then you had a crossover. You had the Judgment Day crossover, which is the X-Men crossover, X-Men Eternals, Avengers crossover, and which was
that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it was all very right.
Busy series.
Yeah. It was all right. There was bits and bobs, but there was one spin-off bit where the Celestials started judging people. It went around everywhere, and it was all.
Well, I don't like your jeans, mate.
Yeah. It was unclear with the X-Men, and it was always a bit like whatever. However, there was one crossover issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and it was issue number 10. And basically, Spider-Man was judged.
Oh.
And Zeb Wells did it differently. Zeb Wells had Gwen Stacy come back from the dead and just stand over judging Peter.
Oh.
And the art wasn't very good, to be honest.
You're not selling it, mate. You're not selling it.
You know, this is why this is one of my
It's
favorite.
meant to be his favorite fucking comics.
Yeah. Is this your number 2 or your number 3?
The art wasn't very good. But the idea about Peter Parker being judged by Gwen Stacy. Okay. But near the end, something happens that just works so well.
Yeah.
It made me cry. I cried. It was so emotional. You know, like sometimes when you're watching an advert and then suddenly something really cheesy and smolsy picks up and it just gets you and you suddenly go, oh, I'm crying. Like my kids still laugh at me for crying when Bing Bong died in Inside Out. Because I was blubbering, absolutely.
Sad.
Bing Bong.
I cried.
It was proper sad. It was the death of his and people who didn't get it were laughing at me. But this issue of Amazing Spider-Man made me cry in public.
There's the full quote.
Yeah, and that hasn't happened since.
They'll be putting that on the back of the train.
It just got me. It just got it.
Sam Morgan.
It's just a one-off story. And it was just, it was absolutely amazing. And my final one is Human Target.
Oh,
I mean,
Tom King can do no
Say
wrong.
No More.
What a great combination.
Tom King is amazing. The art is this incredible. Greg Smallwood is incredible.
He's doing beautiful stuff.
And it's got really my favorite characters from the old Justice League International.
It's got Ice and all those guys, isn't it?
And making them seriously. It's taking them seriously.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. This is so good. Each issue is one whole story and one whole kind of like you could read individual issues. Oh, my son's doing it. Am I being too loud? Okay. Anyway, those are my 3. I'm going to stop talking now because I'm too loud.
Stop talking now. Yeah, turn down the volume. I've got a little comment before you do yours, Ollie.
That's a little comment.
Yeah, a little comment from Toby Anderson. Wish I joined this live broadcast earlier. That Frankenstein story sounds like a steal. It is. Brilliant to see Liam back in Derby down the road. Sorry, but selfishly great that he's back on home turf. Very curious about Matilda. What an enchanting idea of father and daughter co-creators. Love it. I'm available to illustrate Amazing Spider-Man. Thanks, Toby.
Thanks, Toby. Appreciate it.
And you've recently worked with Tom King, haven't you, Liam, on the Batman Catwoman book?
I did. It was great. I'm a big fan of Tom's.
Was that the first time you sort of collaborated in any way?
Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about doing something together. We've thrown a few ideas around. Nothing solid yet, but I hope that works because we really enjoyed doing those 3 issues. That sort of came out of nowhere as well in the middle of Batman Reptilian. I was like, DC was so keen for me
you're
to do
joking.
It. I was about 3 issues in Batman Reptilian. They said, but we figured it out. The way the timing, you've got time to do 3 issues. I said, what?
They create an extra hour in the day, have they?
They did. They put a schedule together and sort of went, here you go, you can do it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Just don't take water breaks or eat.
I really enjoyed it, to be honest.
Oh,
It was,
nice. I really do think that Tom King is at his best when he's doing character-driven stuff like that.
Right.
You know, I think he's just so good at getting under the skin of his character.
Supergirl, that was amazing too.
Oh, that was nearly made my top 3 actually. The Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, because that is gloriously beautiful.
I mean, could make Tom King 3 Tom King stories as his pick, and of course you did one of issue of that Batman Catwoman as well. Did you?
3 issues, yeah.
Yeah, we just talked about that, didn't we?
He's getting in trouble.
So, Olly,
being too noisy. I'm keeping you awake.
Well, my son literally is sleeping right above me.
Well, he's not watching this podcast.
Yeah,
he's
that's
10.
terrible.
We could have had 6 viewers.
He is a sort of intermittent character on the podcast, Liam. He comes along every now and again and causes some trouble. And we just have to accept it that it happens sometimes. You know?
That's all right. That's family life intruding in the real world. You know,
that's it.
That's great.
Definitely. So, Olly,
I should say, while I think about it as well, relating to Matilda, we have a plan to do. Well, we're already some way through it. She's finished the basic illustrations, but we're going to do a Kickstarter of a kids' book that she's drawing. I've written it. It's a book I did for her like 24 years ago. I was going to do it as a kids' book, and I tried to get it published, but I couldn't get anyone interested in it. And now she's grown up, so she's going to illustrate this story that I wrote.
That's wonderful.
For her, that was kind of about my granddad when he wasn't very well. So it's a sort of very family based. It's called The Great Hereafter. And
your dad's done a book on Kickstarter as well, hasn't he?
It's not a book. It's a jigsaw puzzle.
A jigsaw puzzle. Oh, so you've got a lot of creativity in the family.
Yeah.
When do Kickstarter start paying you?
An advocate for Kickstarter, definitely. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing the kids' book. That sounds really intriguing.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very charming. It's just like a 20-page square bound thing, you know. So classic kids' book, kids' poem type thing.
Fantastic. So Olly.
Right, well, I'm sticking with an Arthurian theme. This is where I make Liam blush, of course, but I think it makes him blush whenever I read his reviews. I've always enjoyed the more prosaic and the more sort of chunkier kind of reading material. Add that to the Arthurian legend and the way Liam is pushing boundaries with comic book art at the moment, bringing in all sorts of influences. That has to be in my top 3. It had everything that I enjoy about a comic. From a completely economic point of view, it doesn't take 2 minutes to read. You're slavering over the artwork. That double-page spread of the elk going, changing from Taliesin into the elk. That's one of my favourite double-page spreads in what is a very epic artistic run anyway. I love the introduction of Taliesin as well, Liam, because obviously one of the first conversations I had was Liam with us. There we go. It's just, look at that. It just looks like some, and I've said this in my review on comiccon.com if anyone wants to go and check it out. Or Sam could get it up. It just reminds me of those 19th century, and I don't know whether you were thinking of this, Liam, when you were doing it, that whole 19th century movement of landscape artists that kind of mythologized Great Britain with that kind of awe and sublimity that was coming in through, on one end the Gothic, but also the sublime. And for me, this fits into that sort of latter sublime, awesome artwork.
It's totally Sir Edwin. I've forgotten his last name, but he did the famous Monarch of the Glen.
Yes, which is the one that
that's pretty much Monarch of the Glen, to be fair. I based it completely on that. I gave him a slightly more superheroic chest. He's got like a narrow waist and a big superhero chest.
It is comics, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very, very...
it was just so evocative. And I think what I like about the homages you do in all, it's still your art style. It's, you know, it's not aping, it's not mimicking, it's merging it. And I think, you know, that's a true sign of a great artist. Someone who you can still pick up and go, that is Liam Sharp artwork.
Cheers,
and I think, you know, I think you're at a sweet spot in your career. It sounds to me emotionally, mentally, satisfactorily. You're getting a great deal out of the amount of hours you must be slaving over it. And, you know, and I know it's a very popular comic book amongst reviewers, as you alluded to before. And it for me, it's just great to be able to see you able to produce another series, because it is a bit of a bonkers sell. It's Arthurian, it's science fiction, it's happening on 3 different planes all at once. And even I was scratching my head, and I'm a bloody English teacher, but I found it fucking brilliant. There you go.
Olly,
There's your bull quote.
Olly, what's the title? What's the title?
Starhenge.
Starhenge.
Yeah.
Starhenge.
Yeah, the book we're talking about on this show.
Yeah, the book we've been talking about for the last time.
I've been searching for Spacehenge. Sorry.
That's like something my granddad would do, like give it a totally different name.
But the book you showed earlier, that's the sort of little sort of special that I'm assuming will sort of bridge the gap between book 1 and book 2.
Yes.
How many series are you expecting out of this, Liam? How big is the story, and does it get bigger every time you go back to it?
I planned it originally as about 4 books, and it would start in the past, in the 5th century, and then slowly move through time, eventually finishing in the distant future with Starhenge. And I've said before, so the Starhenge, the idea of the Starhenge is basically a henge on Mars that acts like a Stargate that will get the Knights of the Veld into the magical future where they can actually, you know, have an effect on this war. But the journey of getting there is complex. And timelines keep shifting and changing, and magic's there and it's not there, and it's all about protecting magic. The second book is called Starhenge, A Kiss for Atticus, and it's much more of an adventure, I think, is probably the best way to put it. We've got the characters in one time zone now, so we've got Taliesin and Merlin and Daryl and Amber all in one time zone. And we know that the world has gone to shit. Basically, it's not how it's meant to be. So it becomes more of an adventure. I don't want to stop being creative with it and pushing myself and trying to do, you know, to play with the form. But I think it at the moment anyway, based on the plot that I've got down, it's a much more straightforward. It's less. You know, this whole series, the 6 issues, was setting up a very complex premise. But now it's been established, and now they're in one time zone. Well, you still got the future time zone, which I'm dealing with it in awe. So at the moment, I'm sort of planning to have like the Starhenge books, and then between each of them, there will be another one shot of what's happening in the future with the robots and everything. So there'll always be like a stepping stone between the series, each separate series, and you know, and with a one shot, a bit like we did with the Green Lantern with the 3-issue Black Star thing.
Yeah.
Or, and in a way, it's a bit like, you know, like a Doctor Who. You get the season, and then you get the Christmas special, and then you get the next season. So it's like that kind of approach. So that's the plan at the moment.
It was lovely to see you. I have to go because
take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
Right. See you, Sam. See you next
week. Good evening.
It was a great 2022, and roll on 2023. Yay!
Yay!
Take care.
Cheers, mate. So that means we won't get any more images because Sam controls all of that. So So, Olly,
well, we've got all the Liam Sharp stuff out of the way, so that's
we did, and you know that was a great way of getting some more Liam in there by having him as one of your choices. I like that.
Cheers.
So,
Cheers, Olly.
What are your other top?
Well, again, we're sticking with the Arthurian legend. I really enjoyed what Kieran Gillen and Dan Mora and the whole team, Tamara Bonvillain and Ed Dukeshire, were doing with Once and Future King. Again, it tickled my fancy. I like a comic that challenges you. So even I was finding myself just brushing up on characters like King Lear, who'd appeared in Geoffrey of Monmouth originally, but because I haven't read Geoffrey of Monmouth for a good 30 years, I found myself picking it up not just for Once and Future, but also for a Starhenge as well. And you know what? It just got me back in love with Arthurian legends again, because I try and find books that have a different spin on it, and I've not done that for a number of years, and so it's got me ploughing through books again. And there was a really good version of a book.
It's very fertile ground, isn't it? The Arthurian.
I nearly called because I didn't know we were obviously conceiving it at the same time, but I nearly called Starhenge Once and Future.
Oh, really?
Telling me that.
Oh, wow.
It's an obvious title, isn't it?
I know, and then it's like, oh, and then when I saw Kieran was doing it, and I love Kieran, he's great. I was like, I can't read this. I'm gonna have to stay way away from it, so I'm not influenced.
He doesn't use Taliesin, so you really looked out there.
I can't wait. I can't wait to pick it up now. And
it's really good. It is really good.
30 issues, and that's the great thing. Again, I think. Because I've literally run out of space in my house for comic books, I like the idea of taking finite series on. With Green Lantern, I knew, right, that's going to be 2 seasons. Same with Swamp Thing and Ram V. Same with Starhenge, which is I asked you how many series have I got?
Have I got enough space for this?
But let me just quickly get this Arthurian adaptation, which is, I read it over a lockdown, and I only got into it because the writer had done a comic book. Adler for Titan Comics, and it was a bit like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but taking female characters from great books like She and original vampire books and stuff like that. But rather than me rambling on, let me get you this book to show you.
Sounds good.
I need to play some lift music now while he's off. Oh, he's back already.
Force Alone.
Interesting. I like the cover. I like the design.
It's the whole Arthurian legend.
Okay.
It's done. Lavi Tidar, who, like I said, did Adler, this Titan comic that made me think, do you know what? I'm going to pick that up with Paul McCaffrey, who is one of the biggest unsung artists on the planet today. I think.
Love Paul.
Absolutely fantastic. But I got this because I enjoyed the comic book Adler, and I definitely recommend it, Liam. I think it's the book that Guy Ritchie's Arthur film was supposed to be. It's got that same kind of King Arthur's a bit of a scally, a bit of a lad. It's got that kind of modern feel to it, but it's very much set in that sort of Celtic / medieval sort of dysphoria that often Arthurian legends are in. So that's certainly a book that I dug out.
Right.
But as I said, reading comics like Starhenge, reading comics like Once and Future, it was just fortuitous to get me back into everything I loved about King Arthur, everything I loved about sword and sorcery. So that was my second pick, because Kieran Gillen is one of my favourite writers. I didn't really get into Kieran Gillen before he did Once and Future. I'd read other things by him, but I was late to the party on Wicked and Divine. So to be introduced to him, funnily enough, Liam, I think it was at the Portsmouth Comic Con the year after you.
Okay.
And very early on, Kieran was very, very nice enough to show us this artwork by Dan Mora. And Dan Mora is someone that definitely deserves his seat at the top of the table these days. Again, he's doing such great stuff on World's Finest, which is one of the best comic books out there. I just love it. Absolutely love it. I don't know if you're reading that at the moment, Liam. It's by Mark Waid, who knows his DC stuff.
Yes. No, I haven't picked it up.
It's fun. It's great fun. I'm not sure whether it's in continuity or not. I've got a feeling it's going to be another universe in the multiverse. A bit like when Jim Shooter did his run on Legions of Superhero in the noughties with a very young Francis Manapul at the time. And then that was revealed to be, actually, this isn't the Legion Superhero, this is a parallel universe.
Right.
I'm wittering on a little bit, so I'm going to finish with my third one that came completely out of the blue because I've not read Avengers for ages. I do enjoy Jason Aaron's writing. And so I thought I'd pick up Avengers Forever because I do like a big parallel universe story. And I think Marvel, although they seem to do quite a lot of it, this is one of the more fun ones where Ghost Rider has got to go round the multiverses to pick up the best versions of the Avengers he can find to beat the worst versions of the Masters of Evil that are taking over and destroying planet after planet in the multiverse. And it's just a great blockbuster of a comic. You don't have to think. Aaron Cudder on art is another great artist that I only came across when he did Action Comics before Rebirth. And he's an artist who's definitely one to watch. And it's just a big, loud, fun comic that just goes from universe to universe. And when one of the best Avengers is Captain America Dog, then you know you're having fun. Then you know you're having fun.
Well, that sounds like fun. So it's not related then to the original Avengers Forever.
No, I think it's a kind of type they like to use from time to time because there's been a few. I mean, obviously the Carlos Pachicos one was a really good one from God knows how many years ago. You know, someone we lost last year, unbelievable, and so young as well. But again, the legacy he leaves in his work is amazing. And I always think about this about artists once they've passed. You know, people like George Perez, Neil Adams. You know, they've left their mark on this world more than, you know, me or you can ever have.
Pacheco came sort of out of the Marvel UK stable a little bit back in the day.
Yeah, I never knew that.
He was a lovely guy. There's one Dublin convention. I was on a panel with him and John McCrae, and it was just I can't even remember what we talked about, but the entire room, including all three of us, were falling about laughing almost the entire time. It was the most fun, hysterical kind of, you know, charming like panel I've ever done. And he's just a really lovely guy. You know, we both were big fans of the original Conan the Barbarian movie with the Basil Polyadorus soundtrack in particular. He told me once that he got to see in Spain a screening of that with Polyadorus conducting a live audience in front of it, a live orchestra in front of it.
Fantastic!
Yeah, quite an epic soundtrack. That I bought it on. What did I get? Mondo brought it out a few years back on vinyl, so I was more than happy to get it. The problem with Mondo vinyl, it's not that good.
I had that twice on vinyl. It's like the only soundtrack I've ever had twice on vinyl.
Oh, wow.
And if you still got it, I take it you must play vinyl still. I never stopped playing vinyl.
They're all in storage back in Derby,
right.
so I've still got
really?
There, but, you know,
I bet you can't wait.
Back then.
Oh, yeah. I bet you can't wait to get back to your vinyl.
There's certain things. I've forgotten 12 years ago, a bunch of stuff went in storage, and I have no idea what half of it is, so it's going to be quite interesting.
Oh, wow.
It's funny, you think it's important stuff, and I've not missed it for 12 years. So there'll be lots of vintage clothing now, I think.
You'll have to start your own little vintage clothing shop.
Exactly.
Yeah. Little beatnik vinyls.
And I won't
fit in anymore.
And do you know what? Because we're doing honourable mentions, the Incal Psychoverse by Yannick Paquette and Mark Russell. Well, I mean, my God, what a project to take on. Talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. But because those have so much, I mean, Mark's a very intelligent writer anyway. So if anyone was going to take on that universe, I wouldn't have given it to many other people other than Mark Russell.
I haven't seen that. But...
It just came out in November.
Okay.
I pre-ordered it in August from Amazon, and I got it just the other day. Bastard Amazon. I thought I was going to get it early, like you do. But 48-page, 50-page graphic novel out
Yeah,
by
it's great,
Humanoids. And again, he's got a very distinct style. He's not trying to ape Mobius. I know Ladron does a really good Mobius impression, but I was really happy that Humanoids were deciding to not necessarily take it in a different direction, because this acts as a prequel to the original Incal, so it fills in a lot of the blanks in a very intelligent way.
Did you ever see the Travis Charest Meta Barons?
Yes, I did. Yes. Oh my God, he's amazing.
Sadly, he didn't, do the whole of the book, but it's still some of the most beautiful art I've ever seen.
Yeah,
just incredible.
He's
incredible artist.
Another guy who came out of nowhere in the late 80s, disappeared for a bit, and then when he come, you think, well, no wonder you disappeared, because this looks like it takes a lot of time to do. He's doing some work with Mark Miller next year.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. That stuff looks incredible as well. It's really amazing. I know him pretty well because he's fairly local.
Oh, really? Not
he
for
did
much
some
longer.
of the covers for the Bat Cat book. Yeah, he's lovely.
Right.
He's a lovely guy.
Brilliant. And I know he's doing a one-off of The Ambassadors, which is the title that I was alluding to, where each comic will have a different artist. That's how you can get people like Travis Charest, because he knows he's only got to do the one book. I'm looking forward to the new comic book year already. But
so who's publishing that, Ollie? Who's publishing that book?
Humanoids.
Oh, right.
They published all of it. But I think they're doing a big push, because you've got Dan Waters. He's about to bring something out as well. I think they've got a whole selection of titles based on the Incal.
Doing stuff with them as well. He's been doing editorial stuff with them too, hasn't he, John?
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
I'm looking forward to it.
That all sounds really exciting.
Hopefully, a new audience can get excited by it, but I get the feeling in the first instance it'll be us old fuckers.
Well, there's still a few of us around, to buy stuff like that. So we have hit 1 hour and 40 minutes. So it's gone incredibly fast, actually. Thank you, Liam, for being so generous with your time.
Yeah, cheers, Liam. What time is it over there now, then?
It is 1:45 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow. Okay. Long lunch break, then.
Yeah. I should go and grab myself a sandwich in a minute.
Well, we'll let you get off, because I'm sure at 20 to 10, I'm quite energized now after this talk. But I'll just slow down and have another cup of tea or something like that, and a slice of cake.
Yeah, I'll be going to sleep, I think, after this. But thanks again, Liam. It's been really good to see you again, mate. Actually,
yes.
See you back over the other side of the pond.
Yeah, definitely.
New Year, chaps.
I know there's a threat of going drinking around Shrewsbury as well, Liam.
Well, that's always on the cards. If you want to come and see
there'll
me,
be get-togethers there.
Yeah, we got Charlie. We got Mike Perkins here now as well.
Yeah, I'm in touch with Mike a fair bit.
Cool.
He's a good mate. So we'll definitely, because we had the same experience. He's sort of gone ahead. He's pioneering the return.
Yeah.
So we're definitely planning to get together when I get back.
He's certainly a gadabout time, Mike Perkins. When I was out with him over the summer, he couldn't turn a corner without bumping into someone he knew. So he's really rooted into Shrewsbury in a very positive way.
He's loving it. He's become part of the town. He's become one of the Shrewsbury comics mafia. Yeah, so that's fair play to him. Well, thanks again, Liam.
Thank you, Liam.
Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you in Derby in the not so far future.
Yeah, much appreciated. Take
care, all the best. All the best, matey.
Cheers, matey.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm not going to play the outtake.
No, because Sam's not here. We'll
Sam's
just
not here.
All our viewers, your mum, my dad, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the comments, Toby, and all the other guys who commented. Bear, Forever Blue UK, Andy Hayes. Thanks for joining in with the show. We really appreciate the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Hey, I'm doing some housekeeping, Ollie.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and read comiccon.com, the website I'm senior editor of. Because every time you show something, it's always through another fucking website.
It ain't me, it's Sam.
Yeah. And I've seen you share stuff on Facebook that I've broken 2 hours earlier, and you still take it from some no-mark website. Yeah, I've already seen you do it once.
Yeah,
it's
go
stuck
out there.
in my noggin.
check out comiccon.com. They always do.
Where I always post the Icecast live every Saturday, whether I'm hosting it or not. So by all means, what we do, and I think we do this better than any other site, we have a lot more interviews than other sites have now. We have some very top reviewers working for us. We're only a small team, about 3 or 4 or 5 reviewers, but the amount of comics we get through, and also we have a few exclusives every now and again, as well as because I think we're a website that are very nice, that like to be treating our fans like we want to be treated. And I think it does pay in dividends when we get people like Mark Miller offering us exclusives. So thanks for all the support, but why not make it your #1 choice for comic book news and reviews? Look at that.
There you go.
I'm like professional.
There you go. Enjoy it, because it's the last time you're ever going to go. No, we're quite happy to support what you do, mate. And also look out for Sam's Comic Book Sam channel on YouTube. It's pretty irreverent stuff, but
yeah, he'd have mentioned it if he was here.
Yeah, he would have if he'd had the chance. Yeah, he's done that before.
But you know what's good, Shane? What's good is the fact that the people who watch this realise we are passionate enough about comics that we don't just do this for an hour and a half. We live it and breathe it, and we're just as much fans as everyone else is. Definitely. And I know a lot of the creators we've talked to are also big fans of the medium still.
That's it. I mean, a lot of the guys we talk to on here, you know, we've spoken to artists and writers from all over, and the one thing they have in common is they love their comics.
Yeah,
you know? They've got to love it to come on here, because they get abused, you know. So they've got to love what they're doing. So thanks, mate. Thanks for tonight.
Thank you,
everyone.
I will see you on the other side, or next Thursday, whichever one comes first.
Should be next Thursday. We've got some interesting guests coming up. I have been laying down some groundwork. We've got some very interesting guests in the near future. So
that's it. So
look out for the announcements.
Definitely keep up with everything Icecast Live.
Definitely. Good night, mate.
All the best.
Good night, everybody.
All the best, matey.
Bye-bye.